The rush of water against the weathered pier posts was all Ethan Zane could hear as he watched his 10-year-old son cast a line into the lake. His small face creased with concentration. This moment, this simple Saturday morning ritual, was the only luxury Ethan could afford since losing his construction company 2 years ago, but to him, it was worth more than any fortune. "Dad, I think I got something." Noah's excited voice carried across the water as his fishing rod bent toward the surface. Ethan jumped up from his seat on the old tackle box. "Easy now, buddy. Remember what I taught you, don't jerk it, just keep tension on the line." Noah's tongue poked out of the corner of his mouth as he focused on reeling in what turned out to be a decent-sized trout. Pride swelled in Ethan's chest, despite the gnawing worry about next month's rent. At 34, he hadn't expected to be starting over, working 2 jobs while trying to be both mom and dad to Noah after his wife walked out, claiming she wasn't cut out for the struggle. "That's a keeper, Noah." "You're getting better than your old man," Ethan said, ruffling his son's sandy blonde hair as the fish flopped in their small cooler. "Can I try to catch another one?" Noah asked, already reaching for more bait. "One more, then we need to head back. I've got a shift at the hardware store at noon." Ethan checked his watch, a simple timepiece that had been his father's, one of the few possessions he refused to part with even in the worst financial moments. As Noah prepared to cast again, Ethan noticed a boy about Noah's age hovering nearby, watching them with undisguised interest. The boy was well-dressed in what looked like designer clothes, clutching a handheld gaming device that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. "Hi," Noah called out, always quick to make friends. "Do you want to fish too?" The boy glanced back toward a sleek SUV parked in the lot before nodding hesitantly. "I've never fished before." "Dad can teach you. He's the best," Noah proclaimed with absolute certainty, making Ethan's heart swell. Ethan smiled at the newcomer. "I'm Ethan, and this is Noah. What's your name?" "Mason," the boy replied, stepping closer. "My mom's on a call." He gestured vaguely toward the parked vehicle where a woman was visible through the windshield, phone pressed to her ear. "Well, Mason, fishing is pretty simple once you get the hang of it," Ethan said, reaching for their spare rod. "We've got about 20 minutes if you want a quick lesson." The boy's face lit up. "Really? Is it okay if I try?" Ethan guided Mason through baiting the hook, something the boy initially approached with comical disgust that had Noah giggling. Within minutes, both boys were casting lines into the water, with Noah proudly sharing his newfound expertise. When Mason's line suddenly went taut, the boy froze in panic. "What do I do?" he yelped. Ethan moved behind him, placing steady hands over the boy's smaller ones. "Just like I showed you, steady pressure and reel when you feel the tension ease." Together, they fought what turned out to be a decent-sized bass. When they finally got it to shore, Mason was practically vibrating with excitement. "I did it. I caught a fish," he shouted, jumping up and down. "You sure did," Ethan laughed, showing him how to remove the hook. "That's a good-sized bass. Are you going to keep it or let it go?" Mason's excitement dimmed slightly. "I don't think my mom would want me to bring a fish home." "That's okay. Sometimes the fun is in catching them, not keeping them." Ethan demonstrated how to release the fish safely, and Mason watched in wonder as it swam away. "Mason, what are you doing?" A woman's voice called from behind them. Ethan turned to see a striking woman approaching, her dark hair pulled into a neat bun, designer sunglasses perched on her head. Despite her casual attire, expensive-looking jeans, and a simple blouse, everything about her screamed money, from her perfectly manicured nails to her posture. "Mom." "I caught a fish." Mason ran to her, words tumbling out in excitement. "Mr. Ethan showed me how, and Noah helped too, and it was this big." His arms stretched wide in the universal fisherman's exaggeration. The woman's eyes met Ethan's, a mix of surprise and something unreadable in their deep brown depths. "I see. Thank you for entertaining him, Mr. Zane, Ethan Zane." He wiped his hand on his jeans before offering it, and it was no problem at all. Mason's a natural. Zoey Owens, she replied, her handshake firm but brief. I'm sorry if he interrupted your morning. Not at all. Noah loves having company, don't you, buddy? Noah nodded enthusiastically. Mason should come fishing with us again. We come every Saturday. Mason looked up at his mother with hopeful eyes. Can we, Mom, please? Something flashed across Zoe's face, hesitation, perhaps before she offered a small smile. We'll see. I'm afraid we have a busy schedule, but thank you for the invitation. She checked her watch, a delicate piece that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. We should get going, Mason. You have piano in an hour. The contrast between their lives couldn't have been more apparent as Mason reluctantly said goodbye, trailing after his mother to their luxury vehicle while Ethan and Noah packed up their second-hand gear. They seem nice, Noah commented as they loaded the tackle box into their beat-up pickup. Yeah, they do, Ethan agreed, trying not to dwell on the elegant sway of Zoey Owens' departure or the flash of connection he'd felt when their eyes met. That evening, after putting Noah to bed, Ethan sat at his kitchen table reviewing bills. Between his day job at the hardware store and evening shifts as a security guard, he was barely keeping their heads above water. The fishing trip had been their one splurge, a few dollars for bait, and the gas to drive to the lake. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Zane, this is Zoey Owens. Mason hasn't stopped talking about fishing. Would it be possible to meet at the lake again next Saturday? I'd be happy to compensate you for your time. Ethan frowned at the message. Compensate him? Like he was some kind of fishing guide for hire. No compensation necessary, he texted back. Noah and I will be there around 7 a.m. Mason is welcome to join us. The reply came quickly. That's very kind. We'll be there. Mason is thrilled. Thank you. Ethan set his phone down, unsure why the brief exchange left him feeling so conflicted. There was something about Zoey Owens, beyond her obvious wealth and beauty, that had gotten under his skin. A guardedness in her eyes that mirrored his own. The following Saturday dawned clear and cool. Ethan and Noah arrived at their usual spot to find Zoey and Mason already waiting, the boy clutching a brand new fishing rod with the price tag still attached. Look what Mom got me, Mason exclaimed, proudly holding up his gear. The guy at the store said it's top of the line. Ethan bit back a smile. The rod was indeed expensive and completely inappropriate for a beginner. That's something, all right. Zoey must have caught his expression because she looked suddenly embarrassed. I should have asked for advice first, shouldn't I? It's a great rod, Ethan assured her. Just maybe more than a beginner needs, but he'll grow into it. While the boys sat up by the water, Zoey lingered by Ethan. Today she was dressed down in jeans and a sweater, though Ethan suspected even this casual outfit cost more than his entire wardrobe. I want to thank you properly, she said. Mason's father isn't in the picture, and he's been missing male influence in his life. Seeing him so excited about something outdoorsy instead of video games is refreshing. Ethan nodded, watching the boys. Noah's mom left 2 years ago. It's been just us since then. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. We manage. Zoey studied him for a moment. You know, I own a development company. We're always looking for good project managers with construction experience. If you're interested, I'm not looking for charity. Ethan cut her off. More sharply than he intended, her expression cooled. It wasn't charity, it was networking, but I apologize for overstepping. Ethan immediately regretted his reaction. No, I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. I lost my construction business a couple years back. It's still a sore spot. Before Zoey could respond, Mason called out for help, and Ethan welcomed the interruption. For the next hour, he focused on teaching both boys some new fishing techniques, deliberately keeping his distance from Zoey. Around mid-morning, Noah and Mason wandered down the shore to explore a shallow inlet, staying within sight but out of earshot. Ethan found himself alone with Zoey, an awkward silence stretching between them. So, what does Zoey Owens do when she's not buying overpriced fishing equipment? he finally asked, attempting to lighten the mood. She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Mostly, I work too much. I took over my father's company 5 years ago when he passed away, commercial real estate development. Owens Properties? Ethan asked, recognition dawning. Her company was responsible for half the new buildings in the downtown area. She nodded. The very same, glamorous, right? Mostly it's meetings and spreadsheets. Still, you must be doing well. He gestured vaguely toward where her car was parked. Financially, yes. Something in her tone made him look at her more closely. She was staring out at the water, her profile outlined against the morning sun. But Mason and we're alone in a big house. Success doesn't keep you warm at night. The raw honesty in her voice caught him off guard. Before he could respond, Noah came running back, proudly displaying a unique rock he'd found. By the time they parted ways that afternoon, something had shifted. Zoey no longer seemed like just a wealthy woman slumming it at the fishing hole, but a single mother trying her best, just like him. The Saturday fishing trips became a regular occurrence. Ethan refused Zoey's initial offers to pay for anything, but eventually they fell into a rhythm where she would bring lunch for everyone, and he provided the fishing expertise. The boys became fast friends, their different backgrounds irrelevant in the world of childhood adventures. As weeks turned to months, Ethan found himself looking forward to these mornings not just for Noah's sake, but for the moments with Zoey. She was smart, driven, and underneath her polished exterior, surprisingly funny. He learned that she'd built her father's modest company into a regional powerhouse, that she volunteered at Mason's school despite her packed schedule, and that she could recite entire episodes of old sitcoms word for word. One Saturday in late autumn, when the air had turned crisp and the trees blazed with color, the boys ran ahead to their usual spot while Ethan and Zoey walked slowly behind, carrying the gear. Mason asked if Noah could come over for a sleepover next weekend, Zoey said, adjusting her grip on the tackle box. Would that be okay with you? Ethan hesitated. Their friendship had carefully maintained certain boundaries. The lake was neutral territory, but their separate lives never intersected beyond it. The thought of Noah seeing how the other half lived made him uncomfortable. Noah's never done a sleepover before, he admitted. It would mean a lot to Mason. And to me, she added softly. My house is too quiet most of the time. Something in her voice made it impossible to refuse. All right, he'll need to call me before bed, though. Of course. She smiled, then gestured to a fallen log nearby. Let's sit for a minute. The boys are fine setting up. They settled on the log, shoulders nearly touching. Ethan was acutely aware of her presence, the faint scent of her perfume, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when thinking. Ethan, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about, she began, her tone making him tense. That sounds serious. I've been impressed watching you with Noah, with Mason. You have a natural way with them. She looked directly at him. My company is starting a community center project after school programs, sports facilities, classes for underserved kids. We need someone to run the recreational programming, someone good with children, who understands what families in the community actually need. Ethan stared at her. And you think that's me? I know it's you. The pay is good, better than good, full benefits, regular hours that would align with Noah's school schedule. She was speaking quickly now, as if afraid he'd interrupt. It's not charity, Ethan. It's a job I need filled, and you're qualified. His instinct was to refuse to maintain his pride, rather than accept help from someone so far above his social station. But Noah's face flashed in his mind the way his son tried not to ask for things he knew they couldn't afford, how he never complained when Ethan missed school events because of work. Can I think about it? He finally asked. Zoey nodded, visibly relieved he hadn't outright refused. Of course. The position won't be filled for another month. Just promise me you'll seriously consider it. Later that night, after Noah had gone to bed full of fish stories and plans for his upcoming sleepover, Ethan researched Owens Properties online. The company's community initiatives were substantial and long-standing. This wasn't a vanity project Zoey had invented to help him. The position she described was real, posted on their website with qualifications that matched his background. The sleepover, the following weekend, changed everything. When Ethan dropped Noah off at Zoey's address, he was prepared for a mansion, but the reality was more nuanced. Her home was large and beautiful, certainly, but not ostentatious, a tastefully renovated historical house in a good neighborhood, with a yard where the boys could play. "Just a quick tour before you go?" Zoey asked, and against his better judgment, Ethan agreed. Inside, he was struck not by the obvious wealth, but by how lived in the home felt. Family photos lined the hallway, many featuring Mason with a man Ethan assumed was Zoey's late father. Books were stacked on coffee tables, a half-finished puzzle dominated the dining room, and Mason's artwork was proudly displayed on the refrigerator. "Not what you expected?" Zoey asked, catching his expression as they ended up in the kitchen. "I thought it would be more sterile, pretentious." She smiled wryly. "I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment over my dad's office. This house still feels too big sometimes." Ethan's perception of her shifted yet again. "How did your father build the business?" "One small property at a time, working himself to exhaustion." She leaned against the counter. "He was a janitor who saved every penny until he could buy his first rundown building, fixed it up himself, rented it out, saved, and repeated. By the time I was in high school, he had a dozen properties." "And you grew it from there," she nodded. "Business degree, then MBA, came back to work for him, then took over when he got sick." Her eyes grew distant. "He died 6 months before Mason was born. And Mason's father, a mistake from my rebellious phase. He signed away his rights before Mason was born." She shrugged, but Ethan could see the old hurt there. "What about Noah's mom? Lisa and I were high school sweethearts, got married young, had Noah right away." He stared out the window where the boys were already playing in the yard. "When the business failed, she couldn't handle the downgrade in lifestyle. Left a note saying she needed to find herself. Last I heard, she's in California." Zoey touched his arm gently. "Noah's lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one," Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion. "He's the reason I get up every morning." Something electric passed between them in that moment, a recognition of shared struggle despite their different circumstances. Later, Ethan would pinpoint this as the moment he began to fall for Zoey Owens. When he picked Noah up the next day, his son was bubbling with excitement about the weekend, the movies they'd watched, the pizza they'd made from scratch, the games they'd played. "And Mason's room has a telescope, Dad, a real one. We looked at the moon and everything." "Miss." Zoey said next time I could stay longer and we could look at Saturn. "Next time, huh?" Ethan glanced at Zoey, who was watching them with a soft expression. "If that's all right with you," she said. "The boys get along so well." "Yeah, they do." He found himself smiling back at her. "Thanks for having him." As they said their goodbyes, Zoey pulled him aside. "Have you thought any more about the position?" He nodded. "I'd like to learn more. Officially, I mean." Her face lit up. "Come by the office tomorrow. We can talk details." The job was everything she'd promised, and more. The salary was nearly double what Ethan made working both his current jobs, with benefits that would make life with Noah infinitely more stable. The position would allow him to use his construction knowledge while working with kids, something he discovered he had a passion for. Most importantly, it would give him regular hours that aligned with Noah's school schedule. He took the job, and by Christmas, their lives had transformed. Noah thrived with his father more present. Their apartment was upgraded to a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom closer to school, and Ethan found purpose in his work that had been missing since he lost his company. Through it all, his friendship with Zoey deepened. What had begun as Saturday mornings at the lake expanded to family dinners, museum trips with the boys, and late-night phone conversations after the children were asleep. Ethan marveled at how someone from such a different world could understand him so completely. while Zoey found in him the grounded perspective she'd been missing in her life. On a snowy evening in February, while the boys built an elaborate fort in Mason's room, Ethan helped Zoey prepare dinner in her kitchen. "Noah asked me something interesting today," Zoey said as she chopped vegetables. "He wanted to know if you were my boyfriend." Ethan nearly dropped the pot he was holding. "What did you tell him?" "I said we were good friends." She set down her knife and turned to face him. Was that the right answer? Her directness had always been one of the things he admired about her. Now it left him nowhere to hide. "What would you have preferred to tell him?" he asked carefully. "The truth," she said, stepping closer. "That I haven't felt this way about anyone in a very long time, that when I'm not with you, I'm thinking about you. That sometimes I watch you with the boys and imagine what it would be like if we were a family." Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. "Zoey, I know there are complications. The differences in our situations, our backgrounds, the boys." She took a deep breath. "But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel something for you, Ethan. Life's too short for that." In response, he closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. "I've been wanting to do this since that first day by the lake," he murmured before kissing her softly. She melted against him, her arms sliding around his neck as the kiss deepened. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "So," she whispered, "when Noah asks again, tell him yes," Ethan replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Definitely yes." They agreed to take things slowly for the boys' sake. Their first official date was dinner at a modest restaurant Ethan chose, where Zoey charmed the owner with her genuine interest in his family photos and refused to let Ethan feel self-conscious about the prices. Their second date was a surprise. Zoey planned tickets to a baseball game where they ate hot dogs and cheered until they were hoarse. By the third date, a quiet walk along the riverfront after dropping the boys at a movie, they were holding hands and making plans for the summer. Through the spring, their relationship blossomed. The boys, far from being confused by the development, seemed delighted by it. Noah had always adored Zoey, and Mason looked at Ethan with unconcealed hero worship. Family outings became the norm: hiking trips, baseball games, impromptu picnics in the park. There were adjustments, of course. Ethan had to overcome his instinct to bristle at Zoey's wealth, to understand that her generosity came from love, not pity. Zoey had to learn that sometimes the best solutions weren't the most expensive ones, that Ethan's pride was part of what made him the man she'd fallen for. On a warm evening in June, nearly a year after they'd first met, Ethan took Zoey back to the lake where it all began. The boys were having a sleepover at a mutual friend's house, giving them a rare night alone. As they walked along the shore, hand in hand, Zoey reminisced about that first meeting. "I was so annoyed that my call ran long and Mason wandered off. Then I saw him with you and Noah, looking happier than he had in months, and I didn't know whether to be grateful or jealous." "Jealous?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That this stranger could connect with my son in a way I was failing to." She squeezed his hand. "I had no idea that day would change our lives." They reached the pier where they always fished, now silvered by moonlight. Ethan guided her to the end, where a small blanket was spread with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "What's all this?" she asked, delighted surprise in her voice. "I wanted tonight to be special." He helped her sit, then settled beside her, suddenly nervous. "It already is," she assured him, leaning against his shoulder as they gazed out over the water. Ethan took a deep breath. "Zoey, this past year has been the best of my life. Before I met you, I was just surviving, going through the motions for Noah's sake. You reminded me how to really live, to dream again." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I know we come from different worlds. You could have anyone, be anywhere. But somehow you chose me, chose us. And I wake up every day grateful for that." Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm not offering you wealth or status or anything like that. All I have to give you is my heart, my future, and my promise to love you and Mason for as long as I live." Tears shimmered in Zoe's eyes as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, not extravagant, but beautiful in its sincerity. "Zoey Owens, will you marry me? Will you help me build a family with our boys, a life where we all belong together?" "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she pulled him close. "You know what I love most about you, Ethan Zane, that you never saw me as Zoey Owens, CEO, or Zoey Owens, Millionaire. From the very beginning, you just saw me, the real me underneath all that." "And you saw me too," he replied. "Not just the struggling dad or the guy who'd failed. You saw something in me worth believing in." They sealed their engagement with a kiss beneath the stars, the lake lapping gently against the pier posts. In that moment, both knew they'd found what most people spend lifetimes searching for: a love built on respect, understanding, and genuine connection. The wedding took place the following spring, a joyful celebration where Noah and Mason proudly served as best men. They bought a new house together, larger than Ethan's apartment, but smaller than Zoe's home, a fresh start that belonged to all of them. Ethan continued his work at the community center, eventually expanding the program throughout the city, while Zoe restructured her company to allow her more time with their family. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Emma, who was doted on by her big brothers and whose first fishing trip was documented with hundreds of photos. Life wasn't without its challenges, blending families never is, but they faced each obstacle together, their foundation strong. On Emma's 5th birthday, as their extended family gathered in the backyard, Ethan found himself watching Zoe across the garden. She was laughing with Noah, now a teenager, but still possessing the same open heart that had first welcomed a lonely boy to their fishing spot all those years ago. Mason, nearly as tall as Ethan now, was teaching Emma how to cast with a toy fishing rod, his patience infinite with his little sister. Zoe caught Ethan's gaze and smiled, that private smile reserved just for him. She crossed the lawn to his side, slipping her hand into his. "Happy?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Beyond words," she replied. "You know, I've been thinking about that first day a lot lately." "The day I taught Mason to fish," she nodded. "I was on a call with investors, annoyed about being stuck at some lake on a Saturday. Now, I can't imagine our life without those mornings by the water." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Sometimes the best things find us when we're not looking for them. Like a single dad with a fishing rod who taught my son more in 1 hour than all the tutors money could buy." "Exactly like that," he agreed with a grin. "Or a CEO pretending she wasn't impressed by my expert worm baiting technique." Zoe laughed, the sound still his favorite in the world. "I love you, Ethan Zane. And I love you, Zoey Zane Owens." As they rejoined their children, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from a chance meeting by a lake to a family bound by love, rather than blood or background. What had begun with a simple fishing lesson had transformed into the greatest catch of his life. A family, a purpose, and a love that had seen beyond circumstances to the heart of who they truly were.